The plane's tires hit the tarmac with a squeal, jolting me out of the half-sleep I'd fallen into during the 3-hour flight. I turned to my wife, Ashley, who was practically glowing with excitement. Our first couple's vacation! She'd been chirping about it for weeks, and I tried to share her enthusiasm. A week at a luxury beach resort with our best friends, Kevin and Lauren. What could go wrong? The cab ride from the airport to the resort was filled with laughter and chatter. Ashley and Lauren were already swapping ideas about which activities to try first, while Kevin and I exchanged knowing grins. We'd been friends since college, bonded over cheap beer and bad decisions. The girls hit it off immediately when Ashley and I started dating, and from there, our double dates had evolved into an inseparable friendship. When we arrived, the resort was everything the brochure had promised: turquoise waters, white sand beaches, and private bungalows tucked away among swaying palm trees. I couldn't help but feel a little proud for picking the place. This was going to be the reset Ashley and I needed. The first few days were perfect. Mornings were spent lounging by the pool, afternoons exploring the nearby coral reefs, and evenings indulging in cocktails as the sun melted into the horizon. Ashley seemed more relaxed than she'd been in months. I'd chalked up her recent mood swings to stress. Work had been brutal, and we hadn't spent much quality time together in ages. But here on this island, she was my Ashley again, laughing, playful, and glowing. But then, things started to shift. Subtle at first. Ashley and Kevin began to have a lot of inside jokes I wasn't in on. Little quips during dinner that made Lauren and me glance at each other with raised eyebrows. I figured it was just their personalities meshing. Kevin was always the life of the party, and Ashley loved to laugh. The real change came midweek. I'd taken a nap after snorkeling while Ashley stayed at the pool with Kevin and Lauren. When I woke up, Lauren was sitting alone on our bungalow's porch, staring at her phone with an intensity that felt out of place in paradise. "Where's everyone?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. She barely glanced up. "Ashley and Kevin went to get drinks. I thought I'd check in on work stuff." I nodded, but something about her tone stuck with me. It wasn't until later that night when I saw Ashley and Kevin laughing over something on her phone that I felt the first twinge of unease. It wasn't the laughter itself. It was the way their heads were so close together, the way Ashley brushed his arm as she leaned in. It felt intimate. For the rest of the evening, I tried to shake off the feeling. I told myself I was being paranoid. Ashley loved me, and Kevin was like a brother. But as we walked back to the bungalows, Ashley reached for my hand, and I felt her hesitate for just a second before her fingers laced through mine. Lying in bed that night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above us, listening to Ashley's soft breaths. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe this vacation was bringing us closer to everyone, and I just wasn't used to it. But as the days unfolded, I couldn't ignore the signs. Ashley's laughter came easier around Kevin. She started to dress up more, not for our dinners, but for the afternoons lounging by the pool. And Kevin? He seemed to always be where Ashley was, whether Lauren or I were around or not. It wasn't until I found Ashley's phone buzzing with a message from Kevin, just a playful, "Can't wait to see you, winky face," that my doubts solidified into something colder. Something sharper. I didn't mention the message right away. I sat there, staring at her phone on the nightstand, watching it buzz once more before the screen dimmed. I wanted to believe it was innocent, but that damn winking face sat in my head like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Ashley emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in one of the resort's plush robes, her skin still glowing from the sun and ocean. She flashed me a smile, towel-drying her hair. "What's with the look?" she asked, noticing my furrowed brow. I forced a smile and shrugged. "Just tired, I guess." She sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I could smell the floral lotion she always used. "You sure? It's been a great trip so far, hasn't it?" "Yeah," I lied. I kissed her lightly, but my mind was elsewhere. The next morning, Kevin was already down by the beach when we joined him. Lauren wasn't with him. She'd gone to the spa early, leaving him alone, half buried in the sand like some grown man-child. Ashley waved and jogged ahead, dropping her towel next to his spot. "Morning, you lazy bum," she teased, nudging him with her foot. Kevin grinned up at her and grabbed her ankle, pretending to drag her into the sand. I followed behind, slower, studying the way they laughed like I wasn't even there. "Where's Lauren?" I asked, dropping into the chair next to them. "Massage," Kevin said casually. "Thought I'd get some sun." I nodded but felt like I was intruding on something. I noticed Ashley's body language, leaning toward him, brushing her hair over her shoulder in that way she did when she wanted attention. Lauren eventually joined us, her hair damp from whatever eucalyptus miracle treatment she'd indulged in. She kissed Kevin's cheek, and I swear I saw him stiffen just slightly, like the gesture startled him. "Hey!" Lauren greeted me, sliding into the seat next to mine. "Good massage?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She smiled but then glanced toward Ashley and Kevin. "Yeah, relaxing." Lauren's voice was soft, but there was something in it. I caught her watching them, too. Later that day, Lauren and I found ourselves alone at the pool while Ashley and Kevin went to grab snacks. She sipped her drink, the condensation dripping over her fingers, but her eyes barely left the direction they'd gone. "Is it just me?" she finally said, swirling the ice in her glass. "Or have they been spending a lot of time together?" I took a deep breath and set my drink down. "I thought I was the only one noticing." Lauren exhaled, almost relieved. "Kevin and Ashley have always gotten along, but I don't know. It's different this time." She turned to face me, lowering her sunglasses. "Have you said anything to her?" "No. Not yet." "What about him?" I shook my head. "I don't even know what I'd say." "Hey, Kevin, I think you might be flirting with my wife?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lauren smirked, but it faded quickly. "I thought maybe I was paranoid, but they disappear a lot." "She's been texting him, too." My grip tightened around my glass. "I caught a couple messages the other day," Lauren added, lowering her voice. "Nothing scandalous, but it's the tone. Like playful. Flirty." I felt the knot in my stomach tighten. As if on cue, Ashley and Kevin reappeared, balancing a tray of drinks and snacks between them. They were laughing about something I wasn't in on. "We come bearing gifts." Kevin grinned, passing a mojito to Lauren. Ashley handed me a beer, her hand lingering on my shoulder as she sat down. "You guys okay?" she asked, catching the tail end of our conversation. I smiled thinly. "Yeah, we're good." Lauren didn't say much the rest of the afternoon. Neither did I. That night, as I lay next to Ashley in bed, I felt her warmth, her soft breaths as she drifted to sleep. I stared at the ceiling, drowning in the deafening hum of the ceiling fan. I knew I couldn't let this go on without answers. The next day, I decided I'd find out for sure. The next morning, I woke before Ashley. The early light crept through the bungalow's thin curtains, cutting across the bed in golden streaks. I watched her sleep for a long time, trying to remember the last time I felt like I truly knew her. I slipped out of bed quietly and dressed, leaving Ashley to rest. Kevin was already at the resort's beachside cafe, sipping coffee and flipping through his phone. His sunglasses hid his eyes, but his posture was easy, relaxed. Too relaxed. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, pulling out a chair. Kevin glanced up and smiled. "Of course, man. Early start?" "Couldn't sleep," I replied, signaling the waiter for a cup. The ocean stretched endlessly behind him, waves lapping lazily at the shore. It was the kind of place where people left their problems behind, but mine followed me, clinging like sand that wouldn't wash away. Kevin and I made small talk, mostly about work and the trip. I waited, letting silence build between us until he finally glanced up, sensing something was off. "You okay?" he asked, setting his phone down. I hesitated for just a second. "Lauren said you and Ashley have been spending a lot of time together." Kevin's hand froze on his coffee cup. He recovered quickly, flashing a grin. "Yeah, I guess. She's fun to hang with." I kept my eyes on him, measuring his response. More fun than Lauren? Kevin laughed, but it felt thin, artificial. Come on, man. You're not seriously worried about that, are you? I shrugged. I didn't think so, but lately. His face softened, leaning in slightly. Look, I'd never do anything to mess up your marriage. Ashley's great, but we're just friends. You know that. I nodded slowly, pretending his words made sense, pretending I didn't notice the twitch of his jaw when he said it. Still, I let it drop. For now. That afternoon, Lauren suggested we rent bikes and explore the far side of the island. Ashley passed, claiming she wanted to relax by the pool. Kevin hesitated, glancing between Ashley and Lauren. I'll stay with Ash, Kevin said casually. You two have fun. Lauren's grip on the handlebars tightened. Suit yourself, she muttered. As we pedaled away, I glanced back once. Ashley had already slid her sunglasses on, leaning toward Kevin to say something I couldn't hear. Lauren kept quiet most of the ride. The breeze tangled her hair, but she didn't seem to notice, staring straight ahead as if she were trying to outrun something. Finally, as we stopped at a bluff overlooking the ocean, she broke the silence. I think they're sleeping together, she said abruptly, her voice calm but distant. I felt the air shift around me. What makes you say that? Lauren stared at the waves crashing below, her arms folded tightly over her chest. Kevin's been weird for months. It's not just this trip. And Ashley, she's different when he's around. You've seen it, haven't you? I swallowed hard, not wanting to admit how right she was. What are you going to do? She asked, glancing at me. I didn't have an answer. We returned just before sunset, the sky painted in vibrant oranges and pinks. I saw them before they saw us, Ashley and Kevin, lounging together in the cabana near the pool, sharing a bottle of wine. Lauren stiffened beside me, her jaw clenched. Unbelievable, she whispered. Ashley spotted us first, waving like nothing was out of the ordinary. How was the ride? She called out. Great, Lauren replied, her tone flat. She didn't even slow down, disappearing into her bungalow without another word. I lingered. Ashley and Kevin exchanged a brief glance before she patted the seat next to her. Come sit, she said sweetly. We saved you some wine. I sat, but I didn't touch the glass. Later that night, I waited until Ashley was asleep before I quietly slipped out onto the bungalow's porch. The island air was thick and humid, pressing down on me as I scrolled through her phone again. There it was. A new message from Kevin. Tonight was fun. Can't wait for tomorrow, winky face. The winking face. Again. I turned off the phone and sat there, staring out at the dark water, listening to the waves crash against the shore. A plan began to form in the back of my mind. Tomorrow, I would stop pretending. I woke before Ashley again, my mind already set. I slipped out of bed quietly and took her phone with me. Sitting on the porch, I scrolled through her messages, feeling the weight of each word like a stone settling in my gut. Kevin's name appeared far too often. Some texts were harmless, but others, not so much. Kevin, you looked incredible yesterday. Lauren doesn't even notice when you're gone. Ashley, she's too busy at the spa anyway. You're better company. Kevin, same time later? Ashley, wouldn't miss it. I clenched the phone, breathing slowly through my nose to keep calm. The sun was just beginning to rise, and the whole island felt too peaceful for what was brewing inside me. I wasn't sure how long I sat there, replaying every conversation, every inside joke between them. Every glance I'd brushed off now felt like a flashing sign I'd been too blind to read. Behind me, the door creaked open. Ashley stepped outside in her robe, rubbing her eyes. Hey, you're up early, she mumbled. I didn't say anything. She kissed my temple as she passed, but I barely felt it. I'm gonna grab some coffee. Want anything? She asked casually. No. Ashley hesitated, sensing the stiffness in my voice. You sure? I'm good, I replied, staring at the horizon. I listened to her footsteps fade, and as soon as she was gone, I grabbed the phone and did what I had been dreading. I texted Kevin. Me, posing as Ashley. Hey. Can you meet me at the North Beach in an hour? I need to talk to you alone. The doubts appeared instantly. Kevin. Of course. Everything okay? Me. Just meet me. I told Lauren to meet me near the resort's pier, away from the crowded areas. When I arrived, she was pacing the sand, arms crossed. What's going on? She asked. I held up the phone. I found their messages. Lauren's face paled. What do they say? I read a few aloud. By the time I was done, her eyes were glassy, her hands shaking. I knew it, she whispered, biting her lip to keep it from trembling. I glanced down at the phone. Kevin's on his way to the North Beach right now. I told him Ashley wanted to meet him there. Lauren's eyes snapped up. You're going? I think we both should. She didn't hesitate. We spotted him before he saw us, sitting under the palm tree just off the main path, tapping his foot in the sand. He looked at his phone repeatedly, scanning the area. Lauren and I approached quietly, footsteps muffled by the soft beach. Waiting for someone? I asked. Kevin spun around so fast his sunglasses nearly flew off. He stared at me, then at Lauren, eyes wide and unsure how to play it. Hey! What's up, guys? He forced a smile that didn't last long. Lauren crossed her arms, her voice sharp. Where's Ashley? Kevin opened his mouth, then closed it again. I thought she was meeting me here. I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. I know, Kevin. I saw the messages. He stiffened. Look, man, it's not what you think. We were just hanging out. Cut the crap. Lauren interrupted, her voice shaking now. You think we're stupid? I've seen it. You've been sneaking around with her right in front of me. Kevin raised his hands in defense. Relax, Lauren. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I took another step forward, closing the distance. No. We're not. Kevin's face twisted, irritation bleeding through. Fine. He muttered, running a hand through his hair. Look, I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. Lauren let out a bitter laugh. Of course it did. You've been lying to both of us, I said, voice low. And you thought we wouldn't figure it out? Kevin glanced over his shoulder, as if weighing whether to just walk away. Where is she now? Lauren pressed, her eyes burning into him. I don't know, Kevin stammered. Probably back at the pool or the bungalow. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You're going to tell her it's over? Today. Kevin nodded quickly, too eager to agree. Yeah? I'll end it. But I didn't trust him. Lauren and I left him there, pacing circles in the sand. Neither of us spoke until we reached the resort's main walkway. You think he'll actually do it? She asked, doubt heavy in her voice. No, I replied flatly. But I'm not done yet. Lauren stopped, turning to face me fully. So what now? I stared toward the bungalows, where Ashley was probably lounging by the pool, oblivious to what was coming. No, I said quietly. I talked to my wife. By the time I returned to our bungalow, Ashley was stretched out on the patio, flipping through a book like it was any other afternoon in paradise. She didn't notice me at first, her legs crossed at the ankles, head tilted back to catch the sun. I stood there for a moment, watching her. I wanted to remember her like this, peaceful, untouched by the storm that was about to hit. She finally looked up and smiled. Hey, where've you been? I forced myself to sit across from her, feeling the tension coil in my chest. Went for a walk with Lauren. Ashley nodded, turning another page. That's nice. She seemed a little tense earlier. I didn't answer right away, letting the weight of her words hang between us. She's tense because she knows, I said quietly. Ashley's hand froze mid-page, but she didn't look up. Knows what? I studied her carefully, waiting for her to meet my gaze. About you and Kevin. Her fingers twitched, the page slipping from her grasp as the wind lifted it slightly. For a brief moment, she didn't react. Then, slowly, she closed the book and set it on the table between us. "What exactly did Lauren say?" Ashley asked, her tone calm but measured. "She didn't have to say much." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "I saw the messages. The way you two disappear together. It's not subtle, Ash." Ashley's lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced over her shoulder toward the beach, as if expecting Kevin to appear. When he didn't, she exhaled and finally faced me. "It's not what you think," she said carefully. "Kevin and we got close, but it's nothing serious." I let out a quiet laugh, though there was nothing funny about it. "That's supposed to make it better? It's not serious doesn't exactly erase the fact that it's happening." Ashley's eyes darkened, her jaw tightening. "I didn't plan for this. It just happened. You've been distant and I cut her off with a sharp look. "Don't blame me. This isn't about me working too much or being distracted. If something was wrong, you could have talked to me. But instead I didn't want to hurt you," she interrupted, her voice rising just slightly. "I swear, it wasn't supposed to mean anything." "Well, it does," I said, the bitterness seeping into every word. For the first time, Ashley's expression softened, cracks forming in the defensive mask she'd been wearing all week. Her gaze dropped to the table, fingers tracing the edge of the book absent-mindedly. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the weight of it barely audible. I watched her carefully, trying to decide if those two words meant anything at all. Later that evening, I found Kevin alone by the resort's outdoor bar. His shirt was rumpled, and he was nursing something strong in a short glass. He didn't see me until I sat down next to him. For a long moment neither of us spoke. "I told Ashley it's over," Kevin finally said, not looking up from his drink. I nodded slowly, though I didn't believe him. "Lauren?" he asked, hesitant. "She's furious," I replied. "And she has every right to be." Kevin rubbed the back of his neck, letting out a tired sigh. "I messed up, man. I don't know why I let it get this far. That's the thing," I said quietly, turning toward him. "You didn't just let it happen. You chose it. Every time you texted her, every time you snuck away, you made that choice." Kevin winced but didn't argue. "I'm not here to fight you," I added. "I just need you to understand one thing. If you think this is going to quietly blow over, you're wrong." He finally met my eyes, and for once, I saw a flicker of guilt. "You're right," he admitted. "I owe you that much." I stood up, letting the silence hang between us. "You owe Lauren more," I said before walking away. Ashley was waiting for me back at the bungalow. She sat on the edge of the bed, eyes downcast, as if she'd been rehearsing the conversation we were about to have. I closed the door behind me, leaning against it for a moment before speaking. "So what now?" I asked. Ashley shifted nervously, pulling her knees to her chest. "I don't know." I ran a hand through my hair, letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "We can't pretend this didn't happen." "I know," she murmured. "Lauren's already talking about leaving early." "I can't blame her," I said. Ashley looked up sharply. "Leaving?" "She hasn't said anything to me." "She will." Ashley's face paled. For the first time, the weight of what she'd done seemed to sink in fully. She looked smaller, fragile even, and I hated that part of me still wanted to protect her from this, even if she was the one who had shattered it. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, her voice trembling. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But trust wasn't something I could rebuild overnight. "I need time," I said, voice cold but honest. "And you need to figure out what you want, Ashley. Not just from me, from everything." Ashley wiped at her eyes, nodding silently. As I lay in bed that night, listening to the distant sound of the ocean, I realized something important. I wasn't sure if we'd make it through this. But for the first time, I wasn't certain I wanted to. The resort's beauty felt almost mocking the next morning. The sun was relentless, the water sparkled too brightly, and the breeze that once felt soothing now only stirred the heaviness sitting in my chest. Ashley was still asleep when I left the bungalow, slipping out quietly. I needed air. Space. Anything to clear my head. I found Lauren sitting alone on the pier, her feet dangling over the edge. A coffee cup rested beside her, and she stared out at the horizon, lost in thought. Mind if I join you? I asked, stopping a few feet behind her. She didn't look back but gestured for me to sit. Be my guest. I lowered myself onto the wooden planks, letting my legs hang beside hers. For a while neither of us said anything. The ocean whispered beneath us, gentle and steady, as if it didn't care that everything else felt like it was falling apart. You talked to Kevin? She finally asked, her voice calm but distant. I nodded. Yeah. He says it's over. Lauren scoffed. Sure. Until the next time she smiles at him. I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. Are you staying? I asked after a long pause. She glanced down at her cup, swirling the remnants of her coffee. I haven't decided yet. Part of me wants to leave, but the other part. Her voice trailed off, and she shook her head. You're not ready to face it. Exactly. She whispered. I keep thinking if I can just get through the next couple of days, maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe he'll realize how much he's risking. I stared at the horizon, letting the words hang between us. But you know it's not that simple, I said quietly. Lauren's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw the same hollow exhaustion I felt reflected right back at me. No, she admitted. It's not. Later that afternoon, I found Kevin by the beach bar again, downing another beer like it was water. I wasn't sure if he saw me coming or if he was just pretending not to notice, but he didn't look up until I sat beside him. I'm guessing Lauren hasn't forgiven you yet, I said, watching him carefully. Kevin laughed bitterly, running his hand through his salt-tangled hair. Nope. And I don't blame her. For the first time, there was no bravado in his voice. I keep asking myself how I screwed this up. Kevin muttered, swirling the bottle in his hand. It's like I couldn't stop it. One moment, it was just harmless flirting, and the next, I didn't want to stop. I stared at the sand, letting his words sink in. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell him that none of this was as complicated as he was making it out to be. But the truth was, I wasn't sure what to feel anymore. So why did you? I asked, finally looking at him. Kevin met my gaze and shrugged, his eyes dark with regret. Because it felt easy. Like I wasn't just Kevin, the boring married guy. Ashley made me feel like I mattered. I clenched my jaw, but instead of the anger I expected, I just felt tired. And what about Lauren? I asked. Kevin exhaled, staring at the ocean. She deserves better. You're right, I said, standing up. She does. I left him sitting there, staring into his empty bottle like it held all the answers he couldn't find. That evening, Ashley suggested we go to dinner, just the two of us. I agreed, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe I wanted to see if there was anything left to salvage. We sat on the balcony of the resort's restaurant, watching the sunset drip beneath the horizon. Ashley sipped her wine quietly, her eyes flicking between me and the view. This was supposed to be a good trip, she said softly, setting her glass down. Was it? I asked, leaning back in my chair. She winced, but I didn't apologize for the edge in my voice. I didn't want things to turn out like this, Ashley said after a long silence. But they did. Ashley's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. I know I hurt you. I wasn't trying to, I swear. Intentions don't really matter now, do they? I replied. Her hands twisted in her lap. I don't know how to fix this, but I don't want to lose you. I looked at her then, really looked at her. She wasn't the same woman I'd married. Or maybe she was, and I just hadn't been paying attention. The truth was, I didn't know if I could fix this either. You already lost me, Ash, I said quietly, standing up from the table. I left her there, staring into her untouched glass of wine. I walked the length of the beach alone after dinner, letting the sound of the waves drown out the noise in my head. The resort's lights flickered behind me, casting long shadows across the sand, but I kept walking. I didn't want to go back to the bungalow. Not yet. Ashley's words replayed over and over in my mind. I don't want to lose you. But it felt like I was already gone, standing on the outside looking in at whatever was left of our marriage. Far down the shore, I spotted Lauren sitting on a large piece of driftwood, her sandals dangling from her fingertips. She didn't look surprised to see me. Couldn't sleep? I asked, stopping next to her. She scooted over, leaving enough space for me to sit. Didn't feel like trying. I sank onto the driftwood with a sigh. The air felt heavier by the water, the humidity wrapping around us like a damp blanket. You talked to Kevin? Lauren asked, watching the moonlight dance across the water. I nodded. Yeah. He's a mess. She gave a hollow laugh. Good. He should be. For a while, we just sat there, letting the silence fill in the spaces where words would have been. Finally, Lauren broke it. Are you leaving her? She asked softly, her eyes still fixed on the horizon. I hesitated. I hadn't said it out loud yet, not even to myself. But as I stared at the dark water stretching endlessly before us, I felt the answer settle in my chest. I don't know, I admitted. I feel like I should. But part of me keeps hoping maybe we can fix it. Lauren nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I get it. I keep telling myself the same thing. But deep down, I think I already know. I turned toward her. Know what? She met my gaze, her eyes tired and sad. That it's over. Even if I stay, it won't ever be the same. I didn't know what to say to that. She wasn't wrong. The next morning, Ashley greeted me with quiet, nervous energy. She moved carefully around the bungalow, as if afraid one wrong word might send me packing. I was thinking we could take a boat out today, she suggested, brushing her hair behind her ear. Just us. Maybe get away from the resort for a while. I studied her for a moment, recognizing the desperation beneath the surface. She was trying to patch things together, but it felt like putting tape over broken glass. I don't know, I replied, pretending to rummage through my bag. Maybe later. Ashley's shoulders fell just slightly. Sure. Let me know. She left soon after, probably to find Lauren or Kevin. I wasn't sure, and for the first time, I didn't care. By the afternoon, I found myself by the pool, nursing a cold beer. Kevin wandered over, towels slung around his neck. Hey, he greeted cautiously, sitting across from me. I didn't respond right away. I just watched him settle into the chair, his usual confidence noticeably absent. I told Ashley, Kevin began quietly. We agreed to stop everything. I raised an eyebrow. Stop everything? Like it's that simple? Kevin's mouth tightened. Look, I know I screwed up. I'm trying to make this right. You can't. He looked up sharply. You can't make it right, I repeated, leaning forward. You crossed the line, and now you have to live with it. Kevin opened his mouth, but whatever excuse he had died on his tongue. I don't know what you expect me to say, I continued. That I forgive you? That it's fine because you're sorry? Kevin looked down at his drink. I don't expect forgiveness, he admitted quietly. But I thought maybe we could get past it. I let out a breath, shaking my head. I don't know if I can. And I'm not sure Lauren can either. Kevin swallowed hard but said nothing. We sat there for a while, staring at the water, either of us ready to leave but not sure what else there was to say. That night, Lauren knocked on my bungalow door. Ashley was in the shower, so I stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind me. Lauren's arms were crossed, her expression hard to read. I think I'm leaving, she said softly. I blinked. Tonight? She nodded. I already packed. I booked an early flight tomorrow. Kevin's staying for the rest of the trip, but I can't. I wanted to say something to make her stay, but I couldn't find the words. I just thought you should know, she added, turning to leave. Before she could walk away, I stopped her. Lauren. She glanced back. I'm sorry, I said quietly. For everything. Lauren's face softened, and she gave me a small, sad smile. Me too. As she walked away, I stood there, watching her figure disappear down the resort's pathway until she was gone. When I returned inside, Ashley stepped out of the bathroom, drying her hair with a towel. "Who was that?" she asked casually, but there was a note of worry in her voice. "Lauren," I said. "She's leaving tomorrow." Ashley's hands slowed. "Oh." I watched her carefully, but she didn't say anything else. And that was the problem. We were both waiting for someone else to make the first move, to end what we were holding onto by threads. But neither of us did. Not yet. Lauren's departure lingered over the resort like an unwelcome shadow. The next morning, I watched from the balcony as her cab disappeared down the long, winding road that led to the airport. I half expected Kevin to chase after her, to beg her to stay, but he never did. He just stood by the pool, staring blankly at the water, sipping his morning coffee as if nothing had changed. Ashley joined me a few minutes later, her robe loosely tied around her waist, hair still damp from the shower. She followed my gaze toward Kevin and sighed softly. "She's really gone," Ashley said, more to herself than to me. I nodded, gripping the railing a little tighter. "Yeah. She's gone." We stood there in silence, the gulf between us growing wider with every passing second. Ashley shifted, brushing her hair over her shoulder. "I feel terrible about it. I never wanted this to happen." I turned toward her, leaning against the railing. "Then why did it?" Her eyes flickered to mine, and I could see the hesitation. She had an answer, but she didn't want to say it out loud. "I don't know," she finally whispered. "I guess I got caught up in it. Kevin was there, and it felt easy. I wasn't thinking about what it meant." I exhaled slowly, watching the waves crash against the shore. "You had to be thinking something, Ash. This wasn't a one-time mistake." Ashley looked away, biting her lip. "I know. I know I hurt you, and I know that saying sorry doesn't change anything. But I need you to understand." I shook my head. "I don't think I can." Her hand reached for mine, tentative. "I don't want to lose you." I let her touch linger for a moment, then gently pulled away. "We've been over this," I said quietly. "You already did." The weight of those words settled between us like a stone, and for once, Ashley didn't argue. She just nodded, folding her arms across her chest as if trying to shield herself from the inevitable. The rest of the day drifted by in a haze. I kept my distance from Kevin, unsure if I could stand another awkward conversation. Ashley clung to me in subtle ways, small touches, forced smiles, the occasional attempt to spark something between us. But it felt hollow. That evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, Ashley suggested we walk the beach one last time before dinner. We strolled quietly along the shore, the soft crunch of sand beneath our feet. The sky bled orange and purple, and the waves lapped gently at our ankles. Ashley slipped her arm around mine, leaning into me. "Do you remember our honeymoon?" she asked, her voice light, almost hopeful. I nodded. "Yeah. We stayed at that little beach house in Key West. You lost your sandals the first night, and we spent half the trip barefoot." Ashley smiled faintly. "I loved that trip." I did too. But that memory felt like it belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't yet learned how fragile trust could be. As we walked, I spotted Kevin in the distance, standing at the far end of the beach alone. He hadn't noticed us yet, and I didn't make an effort to catch his attention. Ashley squeezed my arm a little tighter. "Can we move past this?" she asked suddenly, her voice almost trembling. I stopped walking, turning to face her fully. The ocean breeze tugged at her hair, and for a brief second, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with. But the weight of everything that had happened pressed down like an anchor. "I don't know," I admitted, the words cutting deeper than I expected. "I don't know if I can look at you the same way." Ashley's eyes shimmered with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "I love you," she whispered. I believed her. I just didn't know if it was enough anymore. As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, I realized that the Ashley I'd known, the one I trusted without question, might be gone for good. And maybe that was okay. But I wasn't sure if I could stay to find out.